Okay, welcome everyone. How's everybody today? My name is Angie Chu, and I'm going to be one of your hosts today at this mindful parenting seminar over Zoom. So I hope everyone is feeling good and excited to be on this show with us, as we're going to be having a very lively and interesting discussion and a very interesting NUS student who will be joining us. So I'd like them now to all turn their videos on so that I can introduce to you. With me, I also have Frank Singham, who is our senior counselor at Brahm Centre, and he has been a very popular counselor for many people who have parenting challenges and teens that are rebellious at home.
Yes.
And I also have Mei Cheng, who is a former vice principal with MOE and has since retired from MOE and joined us to head up the Assist Line. Assist Line is the platform that is serving parents and students who may be feeling distressed or upset about life. So please do reach out to her and her colleague who both man the Assist Line mobiles. And also we have Marissa, who is our guest student here, and she's from NUS, a second-year biomedical student. So she will be speaking very shortly to share her journey in her healing of relationships, especially with her parents. So as this is the Mindful Parenting Seminar, we're going to start with something that is mindful in nature, and that is dropping into our breath and just being aware of how we feel in this moment, any emotions that may be present, any sensations that's in our body, and also the sounds that may be around us. So this is about tuning up our awareness. And by being present, we also reduce the amount of anxiety and any sort of worries or angst that we may be harboring from moment to moment. So I'd like to invite you to sit back right now. Find yourself a comfortable position. And if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. You can always open your eyes anytime. And just start with 3 beautiful deep breaths. And just be aware of where the breathing is, which you have now discovered in taking the 3 deep breaths. And now just noticing how your body is feeling, the presence of any body sensations. May these sensations be tightness, aches, pain, tension, or even an itch. Accepting whatever sensations arise, to be fully aware of how this body is feeling in the present moment. And be aware in this moment if there is any emotion. It could be even impatience, agitation, irritation, or simply just relax. And be aware of the sounds around you. Whatever the sounds may be, just be open to the presence of sounds. Accepting whatever arises in this moment is what enables us to feel a sense of peace, to be able to let go of wanting to change anything in this present moment. To be at ease with whatever arises in this moment is what enables us to relax, to chill, and not be reactive. Sensing into your breathing, letting your body breathe normally. Noticing your heart rate. Are you aware of where your hands are and how your hands are feeling? Notice where your feet are and how your toes are feeling. And tuning to your shoulders. How are your shoulders feeling? And now just noticing where your breath is again, wherever you feel your breath. And now just counting 3 more breaths. And slowly opening your eyes. And smile. Okay, so I hope you notice that there may be a slight change from the time that you first close your eyes and dropping into your 3 deep breaths. And now perhaps feeling a little calmer and more centered. I'm a parent myself, and this practice has helped me survive being a mother, especially of 2 teenagers who were very active, smart, and definitely had a mind of their own. So I'm delighted now to be introducing to you our student from NUS who'll be sharing her mindfulness journey, a course that I taught at NUS, which is called the Undefeated Mind. Before joining NUS as a biomedical student, going on to her 2nd year, she was at a college that I find it very hard to pronounce the name. It's called Unoya. And prior to that, she was at CHIJ. So let me now invite Marissa to share her journey with all of us. Marissa, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Marissa, and thank you, Miss Angie, for the wonderful introduction. So yes, I'm a student from NUS, and I'm here today to share with you on my mindfulness journey. So my mindfulness journey began in January 2020 when I enrolled in the course titled An Undefeated Mind by Miss Angie Chu in Residential College 4. And ever since, my life has changed and is still changing for the better. So during the course, I was reading about Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who is the founding father of mindfulness-based stress relief, or MBSR for short. So when asked to describe what mindfulness was, he once said, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." And when I came across this quote, it stuck with me throughout the course as I found it very relatable to my life. For the most part, I viewed my life as a long to-do list, and with myself as a box checker. I was often busy with academics, with my CCAs and other projects to tick off as many boxes as I could so that I could get myself to where I am today. But this, of course, came at a cost. Amidst all this, life has been throwing me huge unstoppable waves, one after another. And instead of acknowledging these incoming waves, I busy myself with tasks like building sandcastles in this case. And for many years, I believed that if I could ignore these waves that life was throwing me, they would somehow disappear. But of course, I was terribly mistaken. There came a day where I could no longer ignore them. And this was the aftermath, me lying defeated after every wave had hit me. So when I enrolled in an Undefeated Mind in January 2020, I was determined to face these waves bravely and to pick up my surfboard and learn to surf. If I couldn't stop these waves, I might as well learn to surf them. However, I found myself falling over and over and over again. But this was like picking up any new sport. At the start of my mindfulness journey, I anticipated discomfort in becoming aware of the thoughts and issues that I'd buried deep within me for many years. So during the course, I became aware of my two biggest challenges within myself: developing and keeping new habits, and accepting change. Developing and keeping new habits called for a change in lifestyle for myself. And as I would go on to elaborate in my next point, change makes me afraid and uncomfortable. When we had to adopt mindfulness practices for extended periods of time, it was very uncomfortable for me as I found them time-consuming. I would often convince myself that I had better things to do. After completing my daily practices, I felt that they were insincere as I was often distracted and finished them hurriedly. One day, I decided to reflect and asked myself, why do I find these practices so time-consuming? I grew to become aware that this challenge stemmed from a competitive and results-oriented mindset that I had. The need to be productive and to produce results, and the fear of falling behind others while spending time to do these daily practices, they drove me to have a negative judgment of these new habits. This was the first big challenge I wanted to overcome in my mindfulness journey. The next big challenge I had was accepting change. As I mentioned earlier, change evokes fear and discomfort in me. Throughout this journey, I knew that if I wanted to improve, I had to make changes in my life, in my daily habits, my perspective on life and people, and my attitude towards relationships. Likewise, over many days, I had reflected on this and asked myself, why am I so afraid of change, even if it's for the better? When I dug deeper, I became aware that this challenge stemmed from my self-consciousness. I was afraid of people's responses to my change, and as such, I also judged myself. And I realized that this was all just thoughts in my mind that were not even true, but I kept listening to them. So having reflected on my challenges and pitfalls, I could finally conclude that these were the root causes of my challenges. I was determined to overcome these challenges, now equipped with new knowledge on mindfulness. And I did so by having a game plan. I set myself 2 goals to become more patient, non-striving, and present, as well as to become more non-judging. These then went on to become the successes that I had during my mindfulness journey. And to achieve these goals, with mindfulness as my surfboard, I was determined to learn to surf the waves of life. So firstly, I created a daily reminders list for myself. I have this in my room and I see it every day so that I'm reminded of the person I want to be every single day. This helps me to incorporate these values better into my daily life, as there's something tangible for me to see as I go about my day. I also have a journal that I keep to record down my successes and pitfalls each day. Now, this was something I picked up from The Ragged Edge of Silence by Dr. John Francis, which was a book that all of us had to read during the course. I usually journal at the start of the day to record down what I want to achieve, and I return at the end of the day to revisit my goals and see if I've achieved them. I also use the journal to pen down thoughts when I have them to help with reflection. Now, the next milestone in my journey was the silent retreat, which was a day that we all spent together in silence. I never expected it to be such an impactful experience for me, but it definitely was. I found a comfort in silence, taking silent walks, mindful eating and meditating that I never expected to find. Being away from technology was also a refreshing experience. Now, as a digital native, I often spend a lot of time with my devices, even during my downtime. But ever since the silence retreat, I learned that being away from technology helps to calm the mind and heart. These precious moments of silence present opportunities to be more mindful of my thoughts, my emotions, and the environment around me. Lastly, the biggest milestone for me was writing and giving letters to my parents, which was an activity all of us had to do as part of this course. This was equivalent to overcoming my biggest fear in this journey. After entering junior college and thereafter university and staying on campus, my relationship with my parents became more and more strained. Communication became a challenge for us for a long time, and my avoidance attitude wasn't helping either. Now, good relationships are built on skillful and respectful conversations. And these letters definitely sparked conversations with my parents that I haven't had in a long while. One important thing I learned from this was that I had to be aware of the human nature of my parents because they are not perfect. Nobody's perfect, not even parents. And learning to look past their mistakes, as I would with my friends, I learned to become more generous with my love towards them. So this is an overview of my mindfulness journey from January 2020 to now. Now, I didn't want my journey of self-improvement to stop when school ended. So during the circuit breaker, I decided to incorporate daily meditation and yoga practices to be away from technology for at least half an hour a day and to spend more time with both myself and my family. The things I've learned from this course continue to impact my life today, and I can see them impacting my life in the years to come too. Having embarked on this self-discovery journey with mindfulness, I can now see myself as more than just a box checker. Equipped with new knowledge and skills, I now know that I hope to not only continue being loving and grateful to myself, but also to the people around me, especially my parents. So returning back to this quote by Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." I think I can very proudly say that although there are still very choppy and rocky waves in my life, I can surely say that I am now brave enough to navigate and surf these waves. Then again, I still fall over from time to time, and I still have much room for improvement. Every day, I'm working towards being a better version of myself, as well as spreading love and kindness to the people around me. So thank you for your attention, and I wish everyone all the best in learning to surf the waves in your own lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Now, if your parents were on this show, what would they be saying in terms of how their relationship is with you now, from their perspective?
I think they would definitely say that there has been a huge improvement ever since I've taken this course, because I've definitely learned to be more generous with my love, forgiveness towards people, and that shows in my relationship with my parents too. Yeah.
And what could parents do to help change that? I'm sure your parents are not the only ones who have been struggling with relationships with their children. Would there have been anything your parents could have done to help shift that perspective of yours to improve the relationship in the past?
Well, I think I think I can only speak for us children, as I've only experienced how mindfulness and becoming aware of the issues within myself help to review the issues, the underlying issues between my parents and me. So becoming aware of these challenges has helped me improve the relationship between my parents and myself. For parents, I think perhaps being more aware also of their own issues. So being more mindful of their thoughts and their words, that would help greatly also. So I think what I've learned and what I am currently applying in my life can be applied to parents too. Yeah.
Does that mean you're suggesting that they take a mindfulness course too, so that they will become
Definitely. Yes.
I'd like to invite now my two co-hosts. Perhaps you may have some questions for Marissa or some points as well that you'd like to add. Frank, would you like to start?
Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Marissa. That was and as insightful as some of your colleagues from the previous sessions that we have had. One thing I did notice with you and your presentation and with your other colleagues is a point I mentioned at the last webinar about parents helping their kids to take ownership of their lives and to take responsibility and be accountable to themselves for their own actions. And it's clear to me that you did all this, right? I mean, you took it on, you evaluated your challenges, you decided to go for change, and you sustained yourself in it. I'd just like to expand that. Could you expand on that a little bit more for those who haven't gone into mindfulness yet, or who are having some challenges today in their own lives? You know, from your perspective, how much of this ownership, responsibility, and accountability is a personal thing? How much of this you think parents can lend a support for in the development of the skills?
Right. Okay. I think the majority or huge part of this sense of ownership and accountability and responsibility lies on the individual themselves. Having experienced it myself with mindfulness, it requires one to embark on this self-discovery journey to be able to identify challenges within their own lives, and thereafter, take a sense of ownership over these challenges and commit themselves to changing for the better, And I think, yes, parents can definitely support, their children on this self-discovery journey, but the extent to which they can so-called push them is definitely limited, because I think a lot of this motivation to find responsibility over your life comes from the individual themselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you see that the lack of trust by parents in their children adds to the problem, or do you see that it's something else?
Definitely adds to the problem, I believe. And I think trust comes into play when parents offer support for their children when they're embarking on such self-discovery journeys. And when a child is unable to trust their parent, I think having to embark on this journey alone is definitely daunting. And it requires a lot of support from the people around you to commit yourself to change. So if there's a lack of trust, then definitely there will be a lack of support. And I think for children who want to, or teenagers who want to embark on this journey, it will seem like a impossible task to them. Yeah.
Thank you, Marissa. May, can I invite you as well to add your comments and also to pose questions if you have any?
Yeah, first comment is I really like your presentation and also the journey that you shared, where everything actually about our relationship ought to start with self-awareness and the awareness of others. Yeah. So I'd like to ask a question that's on a different area rather than this course that you're taking. Now, you mentioned that as you grow older, and also when you left home to live in residential hall, your relationship with your parents sort of distance. Yeah. So may I know that, of course, looking back, it's easier to say, okay, what you could have done better. Like really, what do you think would have helped? I mean, actually, what is the real cause, and what would have helped both on your side and from your parents? What could they have done better to help so that, you know, you wouldn't have this distance? And similarly to what would you have done? Yeah.
Right. I think when we build relationships based on the amount of time we spend with the other person, it definitely waters down to the quantity and the quality of the time spent with each other. So when I moved away from home, that took a toll on the quantity of time spent together. So to make up for that, I guess we would have to increase the quality of family time, which wasn't done in that case. So therefore, it led to the straining of our relationship. And I think what we could have done better was to spend in that limited amount of time that we had together on weekends, more quality time together. You know, it comes in forms of, let's say, doing simple activities like we do today, baking, cooking, or exercising. And I guess the main problem was myself being too caught up with my academics and my social life in school. And that definitely took a toll on the quality of the family time we were spending together, because I didn't feel a sense of enthusiasm for time spent at home as compared to time spent in hostel. Yeah.
Thank you, Marissa. There are a couple of questions here from the audience. One of them is, can you share the changes that you saw in your life and perspective after you took the course?
So changes in my life and perspective, I guess I would summarize that as my perspective on life itself. I definitely grew to become a more self-aware person. And whenever I make decisions or take actions on any task nowadays, I would always approach it from a very mindful perspective. Instead of doing things rashly, I would always think, okay, how would this impact myself, the people around me, and, you know, myself in the future? So that comes with also mindful speech, the way that I speak to people, especially my parents, and the things that I choose to do at home. Yeah.
Thank you, Marissa. So one of the things that I had mentioned to the students, which really made them quite surprised, was your parents are not perfect. Because it's amazing how many of us grow up having thought that our parents were perfect. Because as toddlers, we only had our parents, and our parents were the only people we looked up to. But as we became teenagers, we suddenly realized that, oh my gosh, you know, our parents are so flawed. But yet the expectation may not have changed. So Marissa, would you like to kind of comment on that? Because that was contributing, I believe, to a lot of your distancing from your parents.
Yes, definitely. So I think ever since you mentioned that in class, it was a big epiphany for me. And, you know, going beyond knowing that my parents are not perfect, I would also think of how would I treat them like as if they're my friends, you know? Because I think for many teenagers, and speaking from my own experience, we often tend to treat our friends better than we would treat our parents, and be more forgiving towards our friends than we would with our parents. So I think that really puts things in perspective. And when I learned to see my parents more as friends, that really helped in being more generous towards them.
Thank you. And do you remember the time when I posed the question, do you treat your friends better than your parents? And do you treat your professors better than your parents? And who have given you more in life? What was your response?
Definitely treating, you know, strangers better than I would with my parents. But knowing that my parents were the ones that gave me the most I could have ever asked for in my life. That really put things in perspective.
So sometimes as parents, we're not the ones who are able to point this out. And maybe one day my kids will hear these questions from someone else. Because if these questions came from the parents themselves, then it might be coming across like, you just want me to be grateful to you, or you're just guilt tripping me. And these are quite common in how teenagers would react to these questions if they came from the parents. So be patient. One day they may realize, maybe not now, but one day. Okay, another question that was posed to you is, when did you start developing a judging mind?
I think that goes way back. Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's accurate to say that it is part of our instinct to, form judgments of other people. Yes, I guess it goes way back into my schooling days, and it is a result of the people that I'm around and the environment that I'm in. Usually that requires, especially with group projects, like when you are choosing people to be part of your group, you definitely have to develop a sense of judgment towards others. And for many years, it has become sort of a subconscious thing to me until I took this course and I became really aware of my judging mindset. And that's why I set myself a goal to move towards a more non-judging version of myself.
Thank you. Another question for you here is, how did you realize your competitive nature is part of the reason for thinking that mindfulness practice is a waste of time?
Well, it definitely took a lot of reflection and a lot of questioning. So digging deeper with the why's question. So why am I finding this time consuming? Why am I feeling uncomfortable during my practices? And I realized that, when we are doing these mindfulness practices, we are taught to, be aware of the thoughts that we are having. And I realized that most of my thoughts were thinking about what I'm going to do after this practice. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do at 10 p.m.? And what time am I going to sleep? So I guess being aware of my thoughts that were always jumping ahead of me revealed that, there was a sense of competitiveness in myself, because I would also think, what are my peers doing at this time too? So that's how I became aware of my competitive and results-oriented mindset.
Thank you. To give you a break, I'm now going to switch the questions over to our counselor and our manager of the assist line. My daughters tend to have a victim mindset, and I'm not sure how I can guide them to take more ownership. Who would like to address this?
Okay, let me give it a shot here. I'm a firm believer that children tend to do what parents do and not what they say. If we pick up a particular mindset or a particular set of beliefs or perspectives, sometimes we have to ask ourselves whether the parents within that household, are they perpetuating this? For example, a victim mindset is where you tend to complain, you tend to blame, you tend to criticize, and the why me question always comes up. So sometimes our children just pick up what we do, and we are humans too, right? So we tend to do all these disconnecting things, what we call disconnecting things. Complain, nag, blame, and always say, why am I always the one who's getting subjected to this? And I do have parents who go through this. And as they go through this, the children are watching, right? They don't intend to pass it on to the children. They are facing their own demons, and they are facing their own monkey brain and their own stresses. and this is something that they automatically react to, right? And the children are watching. So I think the first thing to do here really is to be a bit more mindful and aware of, at the parents, this is for the parents, about your behavior within that household, and what is it that you are doing. Is your behavior as replenishing with in your relationship with the rest of the members of the family? Or does it tend to be depleting, and it creates an acrimonious environment or a non-healthy environment, or home is not a place that children would like to come back to? So our behavior is very important to let children know that, hey, you know, you can accept things, you can let go of things. There are many things we are grateful for. These are wonderful attributes, attitudes of mindfulness, right? And if we take this approach, this very constructive approach towards living our lives, I think our children will possibly tag along, and they will adopt these habits, right? And if it's still not happening, then there's something else happening outside of them, outside of the home, that is influencing them. And so you may want to also check up on that, you know, the kind of company that they keep, the people, the friends that they keep, and whether they are facing undue pressures within the academics domain that they are in, that makes them feel that they are useless, they are hopeless, and so on and so forth, right? So they may need some help. So it requires quite a bit of investigative work, you know, on your part, as well as on the part of the child, and to see what you can do for them.
Thank you, Frank. One example that I like to bring up now is there was a $600 check that came to all of us Singaporeans. What was your response to that? There was one parent who said, it's only $600, you know, how is it going to really make a difference? I said, well, $600, you can eat, you have enough to eat 2-3 meals a day in Singapore for $600. So it's a paycheck that's going to help us not to starve. And that's important for everyone, to make sure that we have sustenance. But an entitled response would be, what, only $600? How can we just be $600, right? You expect me to eat hawker food all the time? So again, how we respond, our children are watching and listening, and this would result in how they would also respond to what we give them, for example. So gratitude and appreciation for what we have and what we get is going to be helping our children to also feel more appreciative and have more gratitude. So I'd like to pose the next question to May. If our teen is not trustworthy of managing his money, as well as having the history of spending money on illicit items, now that he is 16, has opened his own online bank account, daddy's dead against giving him any money, nor for him to have freedom with a bank account. How, as parents, are we expecting to manage this? May, would you like to give it a go?
Yeah, sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Yeah. So I wonder what had happened earlier that, you know, that is now spending money on illicit items. So I think perhaps, you know, sometimes when we look at the behavior, often parents, we want to fix it. Yeah. I mean, we can deal with it later on, but the thing is that ultimately we need to understand what drives that behavior. So is there a particular reason that now he's doing this? I think fairly well by 16, he should know what is right or wrong. Yeah. So perhaps we really need to spend time checking in with him to see what is it that, you know, that leads him to that. Is there some need? Now, really, if it's getting serious and, you know, there's no way that you think that to build trust takes a lot of time. You know, it acts both ways. So he must also demonstrate responsible behavior. So if you think that this is something that you really need to spend more time to understand the child and have conversations to truly listen to understand, and not very quick to jump into conclusion, to judge him, by labels and all that, which blaming and criticizing is not of any help. Perhaps have an understanding and to see what's happening. If not, you may want to, together, parents and the child to talk to Frank.
Thank you. Now, if I remember correctly, a child is able to set up a bank account as soon as he gets an identity card. And it was something that I motivated or encouraged my children to do, because starting them young teaches them how to take responsibility for the money that they have. They can either spend it or they can save it, and they can spend it later on so that they delay the gratification. So trusting your children is the first step to teaching them about responsibility. So I would say maybe, 16 is really not a early age to be opening a bank account. I think really he should have a bank account at the age of 16. So perhaps you may want to start trusting him. And even if he makes some wrong decisions now, so be it. I don't think he's able to buy a gun. He's not able to buy anything that's potentially harmful to someone else or to himself. I'm not sure what it means by illicit here, but trust him to learn and to start taking responsibility when we are able to give them that sense of ownership. Okay, Marissa, there are a couple of questions here related to social media. Now, what is your view about girls, I think boys too, right? Spending so much time on social media. And another person here expressed that her daughter spends more time on social media and more interested in social media than spending with them.
I guess this phenomenon is a result of, our environment, and when we are surrounded by people that are very active on social media, we naturally feel a sense of wanting to be part of that group. So I guess when I was reflecting on why I would spend so much time on social media, even though it wasn't necessary, I realized it was the fear of missing out, like how everyone always, coins that term nowadays. And when you realize, there's actually nothing that you're missing out on, it kind of reminds you that this time that you're spending on social media can be used for something else, like spending more time with your family and quality time with your family, or spending time to do work. So I guess, realizing that you have nothing to miss out on if you're not on social media really helps.
Thank you. Are you on social media often?
I would say much less right now. I usually spend my time doing other things, and I try to be away from devices as much as I can, and it really helps my eyes to.
Did your parents ever nag you about social media?
At times, definitely. But I would say more of the awareness that I grew within myself has helped me to move away from technology.
If they had nagged at you to use less of social media, would you have listened? And how did you used to react?
I guess definitely not. Because, the nagging creates a negative judgment of everything. And I guess I would want to do the opposite. I would be inclined to do the opposite of what they were telling me. So I would think nagging wouldn't have helped.
Thank you. So parents out there, please listen to this very good advice. Nagging doesn't work. So please stop nagging. Let your children find out themselves, and they would when you give them that mental space for them to let their awareness grow. Okay. More questions to you, Marissa. I'm guessing you got a lot of out of this practice because you're pretty disciplined and determined in setting goals for yourself. How has this practice landed on your friends but who are not like you, the more free-spirited ones? I'm guessing this person means in the same course, and assuming you're not free-spirited. So would you like to respond to that?
I guess I cannot speak for others or my peers who are so-called more free-spirited than me. I would say that everyone comes into this course, from different backgrounds, and even though the results may not show immediately, that is not a bad thing. I don't think that it's ever a bad thing. And whatever we've learned from this course, it may realize itself in a few months or a few years even after completing the course. So I think there is no right pace to develop a sense of self-awareness and mindfulness. And it really depends on each individual. So I believe that, even with people in my course that may not have seen the same results as me today, they would go on to see, the similar results or even better results in the future.
Thank you. Another question is, can you share more about your fears, especially in terms of how you feel that people are judging you?
I guess a lot of this fear stems from self-consciousness. And I would say one big factor is, spending a lot of time on social media. And, whenever we spend time on social media, I mean, from my own experience, I would find myself comparing myself with other people that I've seen, on their stories or on their posts. And this, has developed a huge sense of self-consciousness and, has taken a toll on my self-esteem after many years. And I guess that has led to a fear of, change. And I would always consider, what are people's responses to change if I were to change myself. And all these thoughts and noise that, may not even be true, can influence my actions and my choices. And I guess, yeah, so a lot of this fear has stemmed from self-consciousness in that sense.
Thank you. And one more question for you here is, do you think there's a way to help our teenagers accelerate the self-awareness journey? Or is it a matter of trusting them that they will eventually get there at their own pace?
I think it is a matter of trusting them that they would get there eventually. Like I mentioned earlier, every individual has a different approach to mindfulness and self-awareness, and everyone will have a different self-discovery journey. Some may take, months, some may take years. And I think if people are too focused on accelerating their journeys, they would miss out the little things and the little nuggets of wisdom that, they would receive otherwise. So I think the best that parents can do is to support them instead of pushing them. And that support will, have great repercussions. Yeah.
Thank you. So over to you, Frank and May. How do you prevent a 13-year-old from judging so quickly? Oh, you need to unmute first.
Yes. Wow. 13 years old and he or she, I'm not too sure, but judging so easily. Yeah. I think it all comes from this, as we mentioned before, monkey brain. It always is trying to keep us safe, right? And I think every child from the time they are toddlers, they're already absorbing things around them. They're already deciding for themselves what messages they should pick up from the environment, from their parents, from their siblings, how they should act, how they should react, and all driven by this need, this personal need that I need to be loved. I need to be given everything in my life so that I feel that I'm respected and adored. Life must be easy for me. This goes on. It just doesn't happen at the age of 13. It's there all the time. And And when to help them feel less judged and to feel that they are fitting into life, it requires, again, examples from within the family, examples from outside them, to see how those behaviors are. And I think for a 13-year-old, is getting to the point where he's starting his teen years, right? And if he has had a lot of, no, you don't do this, you don't do that, and the parents are controlling his or her life for the last 13 years, then they're going to come at the age of 13 onwards, and there's going to be a pushback. And this is what is happening, right? They judge a lot. They feel that they are not being adored enough. They're not being given enough. Their entitlement mentalities or the needs have not been satisfied enough. And so they push back. And so it's a good time when you see something like this and they feel that, hey, I'm always being judged and, I don't feel good enough, is to sit down and have that chat with them, really have a chat with them. You have to listen. You have to accept them for who they are, and then you have to listen. And you have to spend time with them to get into the psyche, to understand what's going on in there, because there's a lot of fear, a lot of confusion. The brain is a work in progress at this age, and even for many more years to come. And so this ability to listen, to allay them of their fears, to help them feel safe, understand what's going on in their mind. And I think when you do that, you'll be able to make them feel a little bit more self-assured about themselves, more aware.
Thank you. I would add to say that try to understand him instead of judging him, or being judging. Because when we are also seeking to understand him or anyone else in this world, then we are also teaching them how to look at things from different perspectives and be less judgmental. Yeah. Okay, and May, would you like to take this question? How do you help a teenager who's not interested in studying and every day lazing around at home? He has a history of depression, anxiety, and insomnia.
I think he's definitely not having a good time, to be having depression and anxiety before. It is really difficult for someone who had that kind of experience. And it's much more difficult if people who are close to him, around him, do not empathize with him. Okay, so if he is unwell mentally, it's difficult to say that, I want to work hard, I want to do well. Yeah, I believe that all our children want to do well. Nobody wants to fail, right? So I think we need to look at his situation, whether is he still having depression and anxiety, then really he needs to get some treatment, counseling, or some kind of therapy. Really, a lot of validation of emotions is important. And I also want to address just now, why is it a teenager can become so judging? So how do we tell them not to be judging? Yeah, I think the most important thing is that we ourselves, parents, we can start first. Focusing on observing without judgment, meaning focusing on the action. Right, we can give feedback on the action, like, you're supposed to be studying, but, you are watching Netflix. So your observation is study time, and you are, watching Netflix. So what's happening? What do you want to do? Rather than saying, why are you so lazy? Why are you, then that is not going to help. Any blaming, any criticism, I don't think it's going to help. All right, so let's focus on the action and give feedback on the action, so that your child can be aware of it.
Thank you. And relating to that, there's a comment here or a question as well. My son gets upset very easily when I question about his work, even when the criticism put forward is gentle and constructive. How do I teach him to be stronger and not see all criticism as negative? I would say the best thing is not to put forth as a criticism. Offer them suggestions. Help them create awareness by asking them questions, like what May is saying just now about, Are you watching Netflix? Do you have enough time left for studying? And for me personally, I've allowed my children to watch and then they get a bad grade. And that's how they learn, that they need to cut back on their social media, on their watching of TV series, if they want better grades. I'm not the one who wants better grades for them. They have to want it themselves. And therefore, they take the respective changes and decisions that will help themselves to get better grades. I don't want them getting better grades from me because I'm not the one going to school and it's not my future. It's theirs. So this is about them taking responsibility. And allowing them to have bad grades is not a bad thing. They learn. So in year 1, year 2, year 3, go for it. Let them learn the outcomes of their decisions instead of us making decisions for them all the time. And then they will not take responsibility. Worse, they blame us as parents for making bad decisions for them. So Marissa, there's more questions for you here. You are a second-year undergraduate and you have stayed in the halls for almost 2 years. Your relationship distance in that time is very scary to think of that as a parent. Are there things you feel that parents could do towards your growing up years to avoid such a situation?
I think, I don't think a lot can be done in the growing up years to impact, our relationship. I don't think a lot could have been done in our growing up years to impact our relationship today. And I don't think it is helpful to think, in hindsight. So I often, encourage my parents to initiate activities today, on weekends when I come home from hostel. And I think that really helps, building a stronger relationship and spending more quality time together. As a kid, I guess, although we've spent a lot of time together when I was growing up, when I went to junior college, a lot of academic stress strained our relationship. So I don't think a lot of what we've done before that had, its effects today. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question is, what motivated you to take the Undefeated Mind course?
Well, I've always seen myself as a very results-oriented person and a very academic focused person. So when I saw this course that, was something different, something that, wouldn't add on academic stress on myself, I decided to go for it because, maybe it was time that I, try something different from what I've always stuck to my entire life. So that was what motivated me.
Thank you. Let's see who would like to take this question. How do you get a teenager to take a shower?
Oh, dear. Okay. Oh, my. Give him an incentive. I don't know the background to this. It is this, and the patterns behind this. If I was to watch my 2 young grandsons, me and my wife, when we go to America and that's where they are staying, or when they come and visit us, my God, shower is a real pain for them. It is time spent doing something which they think is not fun. I'd rather do it somewhere else and do something else. So how do we fit in things that they have to do for their own good, for their own physical health and everything else, and yet make it fun, and that takes a lot of work. I'm sure the parents must have told him, to take your bath and and explain why it's necessary. I think it didn't sink in. There is something else that's going on in his mind that I don't need to do that. I wonder after 1 week if if we just leave him be, would he take a bath after 1 week? I'm not too sure. It's as Angie said, some of these things you just have to let it go and let it see and let them experience what's going to happen to them, right? They have to experience it. He breaks out in rashes. His friends are going to say, "Ay, you don't smell good," you know. His girlfriends are going to stay away from him because he's beginning to sprout things around his hair and his body. Then they will learn very quickly. I think sometimes you just have to let them learn on their own. Yeah.
I agree with that totally. I have a son who's now early 20s. He still doesn't shower every day. And frankly, I actually don't see anything wrong with that. And, you know, it's only the adults that usually make such a big deal that the kids have to shower every day. You know, even their sweat glands work differently from ours. I mean, some of them don't actually have body odor, and so be it. And if they have, best thing for them is to get a girlfriend. And they will shower before they go and see their girlfriend. So
Yes.
don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Because at the end of the day, your relationship is far more important than whether your kid takes a shower or not. So let go of the small stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Question for you, Marissa. You wrote letters to your parents and have become more mindful of your words when communicating with your parents. Do your parents reciprocate, and do they also reinforce more comfortable communications with you?
Yes, they definitely reciprocated, and they were very supportive after, you know, hearing me out. So I think that really helped us in repairing our relationship to a healthier state. And the support that they've given me ever since, you know, has helped me a lot as individually. Yeah.
Would you say you were a very difficult teenager to live with for a period of time?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. May, one final question for you before we wrap up. To what extent can teachers play a role to support the teenagers' development beyond academics? Because some of the kids are just so stressed, especially when they're going to very good schools. And I believe you were teaching in RI once upon a time.
Well, I think teachers can do a lot. I know that many of the teachers that I work with, they really care about the children. So in terms of the children being stressed and all that, I think teacher would note if, let's say, there's a drop in grades, there's some kind of anxiety, you know, teachers do care too, right? So if you sense that your child is really stressed, and it's good to communicate with the teachers. Let them, they can support. And if really it's beyond them, they could refer to the school counselor to help. Yeah, do seek help early. Yeah.
Thank you. Before we close the session, I'm going to lead you in another 5-minute mindfulness practice. And the reason why I'm going to do this is you may start to notice that when your mind is more calm, you'll be able to see things from more than just your own perspective. And this will certainly go a long way in helping you to resolve relationship issues. Because often our relationship issues come from us being so focused on what we see and what we believe in, without considering the position or the perspectives of others. And this is not going to fix things right away, but I would like to just give you a glimpse into what a calmer mind can do for you. Okay, so if I could invite you all to find yourself a comfortable position to sit in, and also just check into your shoulders. How do your shoulders feel at the moment? Are they relaxed? And if they're not relaxed, just kind of give them a little roll. And even reverse roll. Good. And now closing your eyes and take 3 deep breaths again. Now just notice where your hands are, and if your fingers are clenched or relaxed, then just place your hands where your hands may feel happier. Notice your feet on the ground. your bum on the chair. And tuning to your shoulders, your chest. So this is about sensing into our body. And there's any presence of any emotions. A lot of times our emotions will cause our body sensations to change from being relaxed to being uptight. The tension happening in our shoulders, our arms, and sometimes even in our hands, they start to clench. And tightening in the chest, because our body has now gone into a fight mode. When judgments arise in our mind that our child is not behaving, not being obedient, being rebellious, and these sort of thoughts would just be interpreted as threats, which will then result in our body tensing up. And when the body goes into fight mode, the words that come out of our mouth are not usually kind. They can be very hurtful, harsh, and judgmental in nature. So when this arises, so notice the tightening in our body, and take 3 deep breaths. So I invite you now to take 3 deep breaths. When our muscles relax again, our mind will also ease. And we can then be more mindful of what the words are going to come out of our mouth. And not to let the words damage and cause more rift in the relationships that we have. If we can keep the words in our mouth, keep them from slipping out, it's a beginning of building a more trusting and a more harmonious relationship with our loved ones. And with this practice, we will also be more aware of our actions, to be more restrained, especially when we are going to a fight mode. So just focusing on your breath 3 more times. And slowly opening your eyes. Okay. Now, I don't know whether you were aware, but when I was mentioning the words disobedient, rebellious, I could sense my own body tensing up because these judgments have a way of activating our fight mode in our mind and the body. So don't underestimate the power of thoughts. By just having those judgments in our mind, changes the physiological chemistry in our body. So I would certainly invite all of you to start your own mindfulness journey, because when you do and you start changing the way you respond to your children, they too will start changing their response to you. As you have seen in Marissa's case, when she started to change the way she communicated with her parents reciprocated. So before we end, I'd just like to invite my co-host and also Marissa to say some concluding statements. So Frank, would you like to start?
Thank you, Angie. I would just like to leave everyone this thought that we all have our basic needs, basic psychological needs, from survival to self-worth, self-esteem, the ability to fit in, our need for freedom, our need for fun, and our need for relationships, love and belonging. It is no different for a child than it is for an adult. And so when we are looking at children and we are evaluating our children, and I hope we don't do too much of that, we have to find out which of these needs they're not getting. Maybe they're not meeting their relationship needs in the house. Maybe the academics is just taking on too much of their time and they need some fun. And they maybe, as a teenagers, they need their freedom because they're becoming young adults, and they need that too. So we need to offer them, because you need this as an adult. You see the need for those, and you have to recognize that they, as young and up and coming adults, also need that. So beware of this, and help them meet their needs and help them satisfy their needs, and you will have a happier child and a happier relationship with them.
Thank you. May?
Okay, I think that all of us have good intent, like to want to help our children. We want them to be better. But do bear in mind that what they experience is our interactions, not our intent, right? So I hope that as mindful parents, we take steps to be very careful with the words we use, and careful not to judge them, instead empowering them. I think blaming, criticisms, they can't do anything about it, other than believing that they have a label, being lazy, being negative. Yeah. So I hope that we bear in mind.
Thank you. So Marissa, to help your fellow teenagers and your young folks out there, how can you give the parents some tips on reducing the suffering they impose on their kids?
Right. I think mindfulness presents an opportunity, and a very precious opportunity for everyone to embark on a self-discovery journey and becoming more aware of issues within ourselves would definitely help in creating more positive interactions between ourselves and others. So definitely give mindfulness a try, and I'm pretty sure it would, have some great impacts on your life.
Thank you. So I'm very fortunate to have started Mindfulness Journey since year 2000. And this has really helped me to become a parent that could bear the pain of bringing up teenagers. And that's by restraining myself a lot from not adding pain to their growing up years. They will have their growing pains. Is to be there to support them and to even try to understand them. But most importantly, as a parent, is not to add more pain to their lives. So by not nagging is definitely one of them. And nagging means that we're saying the same thing over and over again and thinking a miracle is going to happen when we say it one more time. It doesn't. And as a parent, it's also important that we have a life of our own, that we're not trying to live our life through our kids. So when we have a life, they will start to see that as being a role model, that their journey in life is to get a life of their own. And please remember, teenagers need to polish their social skills, and that's why they are on social media. They are connecting with their fellow young people, and that is part of being a teenager. So there's no need to deprive them of it. I mean, this is how they interact. In the past, there used to be teen lines offered by Singtel. Well, now they don't even get onto the normal landlines anymore. They just use their mobile phones. And it is their time in life as well to be socializing in order to find their own soulmate, their own partner in life that they're going to start a family with in the future. So it's part and parcel of their growing up. As parents, like all the other animals in the animal species which we are part of, is to be able to set them free. And sometimes humans have the hardest time in doing so. So with that, something for you to think about. I hope I've provoked some of your thoughts. And I'd like to thank Marissa for her courage to come on this seminar with us. Thank you very much. And thank you as well to my co-hosts, May and Frank. So join us again next Sunday, and there are lots of programs that are beneficial to you. Please sign up. Go to our Facebook page or our website. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.